So, using virtual reality for the purposes of upset prevention and recovery training offers some fairly unique advantages. The first thing that we like to cover is this is not a standalone training system, it is supplemental because on aircraft training is one of the critical components in order to experience the emotions, human factors, and sensations associated with proper recovery from the realm of upsets. The virtual realm, though, allows us to fairly efficiently and rather inexpensively put people into a type representative environment. So, unlike the standard, small aerobatic type airplanes, which are used for on aircraft training, thus providing very large margins of safety and also offering very cost efficient means of understanding upsets, we can now put people into an environment which is very representative of what they would see day to day. In this case, we're using a Challenger 300, and the premise would be that when the pilot climbs in, initially it may feel a little bit artificial, but very quickly, pilots get very comfortable with the environment that they're seeing, and often we'll even find that they start doing cockpit checks because everything feels so natural. That's exactly what we're trying to achieve. Now, obviously, we can see that inside this environment, unlike a small aerobatic airplane that might have a bubble canopy, tandem seating, things of that nature, field of view is very different. And so let's have a look at an upset condition and how the field of view is going to be dramatically different. So I'm going to put us into an upset condition. In this case, we'll intentionally fly the airplane there, and we'll freeze right there. Now, obviously, field of view becomes very challenging here because we're not intended to be able to see horizons when they are grossly out of where we would normally keep our aircraft. So we're having to look cross cockpit. We have very limited views to understand where the horizon is and what's in front of us. You can imagine in mountainous terrain or challenging visibility conditions, this becomes very, very difficult. Even the attitude indicator, if we look at it, it can start to become rather confusing other than just seeing a whole bunch of ground. Now, this can also be done in a simulator, so people have typically viewed this in a synthetic environment. But the advantage of the artificial environment or in the VR world is that we can start to view these same parameters but from outside of the airplane. So now we're having an external view of what is taking place. So now we can start to scope around, move ourselves closer or further from the airplane. We can zoom in, zoom above, look down, things of that nature, to try to truly understand what is taking place. And this really helps people to understand the correct sequence of actions to recover. For example, if we look at this scenario right here, we can see that we are quite nose low in relation to the horizon, but more importantly, look at the bank angle. The reason that's important, and again, this is where VR truly shines, is we can start to demonstrate or show where our lift lines are. There's our lift margins right there. So now we can start to see that currently our lift is actually being directed towards the ground. Now, we're not in an airplane here that is going to have stellar roll performance. It's not like being in a small aerobatic airplane. And so we need to be very aware of where our lift is being directed in order to ensure that we are not contributing towards a dive angle. And if you look at this, you can see quite clearly that if we were to pull back on the controls right now and increase the size of the lift vectors, we're actually pulling the nose towards the ground. Hence, push is actually a very valid response, even though we're in a scenario where we're staring at the ground. Now, the next thing that becomes very obvious is we need to get the lift to where it's going to help us rather than hinder us as quickly as possible. And so that's where we can help people to understand that they need to roll quickly as the airplane can possibly roll in order to put the airplane into a position where you can pull the nose away from the ground. So that's going to require full aileron deflection, and the VR realm allows us to practice that as well. The other thing that's quite unique is that we can really break down type-specific considerations. Will a thrust change generate a pitch change? Will the extension of drag increase devices, speed brakes, things of that nature, generate pitch changes? Asymmetric thrust, are there considerations? T-tails, are there considerations? So we can really help customers break down to better understanding how to employ a generic upset recovery strategy in order to get maximum benefit out of it in their natural environment. Once we've gone through all that, we can put our customers back inside the airplane, and then we can go through the exercise of trying to recover from it. Now, as we said, we're going to need to do a gentle push, and then we need to roll aggressively. And it's going to look something like this. Upset, push, roll, thrust, stabilize. You see we have a minor overspeed here, but we've gone back into a climb, and we can recover the airplane. Now, as you noted, we had all the distractions as well that are going to occur in an actual event because all the safety built-in features of the aircraft are triggering to tell us about terrain problems, bank problems, what we should be doing, and things of that nature. And those distractions can sometimes lead pilots to react incorrectly. So the virtual realm allows us to take all the training that was learned, the strategies that were learned, and properly apply them in an environment that is much more representative of what they would actually encounter. It allows us to practice the correct sequences for this airplane in a safe environment. And it allows us to expose people to night, instrument, low altitude, high altitude, what have you, and ensure that they are properly prepared for all potential eventualities.